Welcome back to the 5-Star Life Show. I'm Coach Seth. I'm with my co-host, Coach Mia.
Thanks, Seth.
And we have got a great show for you today.
We do. I'm so excited. It's kind of been like a therapy session for me to be a part of this. I love it.
So we're in our third, session talking about probably one of the most important, pivotal things we can talk about. And that is the question, who am I? Like your identity, in your core, who are you? And just a quick review, if you've missed the last two shows, go back and listen. It's worth the listen. We are ultimately the product of our subconscious person. You're consciously awake, alert, aware, listening to me right now, but the person you really are is beneath the surface. It's in your unconscious or subconscious mind. And until you target that and get to know that person, you will always be kind of at the mercy at the most inconvenient times, right? When there's pressure, when there's stress, what will come out of you will be based out of what's in that unconscious person, right? So as parents, as teachers, as leaders, like what comes out of us in those moments is huge. And that's why when the craziest stuff comes out of us, or it's just a look on our face or whatever, where does that come from? It comes from right here. Now, the good news is, research now says we can shape that. We can impact that. Years ago, they used to say, you know what? If you have bad stuff in your unconscious, like by the time you're like 7 years old, if you have just a bad outlook on life, you've had bad things happen to you, bad experiences, guess what? You're going to be distrusting. You're going to be negative. You're not going to be optimistic. And you're always going to look at the world as this glass that's half empty. And it's just not true. We can influence our subconscious. This should make you happy. One, like personally. Two, as a parent or as a teacher, as an influencer. I mean, there's so many times, Mia, that as a dad, my responses didn't represent the best part of me. And I'm like, why did I respond that way? It comes back to the subconscious. So this is for you. This is a game changer. This is also for your kids. Like you want them to develop their identity. It's so important that you tap into the unconscious part of your kids and then model and teach them how to do the same thing. So in the previous session, I've kind of left off saying that research says that we are, in our core, the stories that we tell ourselves. So, the teenage girl that gets up every day and as she looks in the mirror is thinking and saying to herself, you're ugly, you're ugly, you're ugly, you're ugly. Well, keep that up long enough and the story she's telling herself is that I'm ugly, I'm not good. And guess what happens? It goes from the conscious to the subconscious. That's not good. So ultimately what we're talking about is taking control and not being at the whim of whatever's inside of us. And those teenage girls, they wonder why they're insecure. They wonder why they have bad feelings and why they settle in relationships in life. It's because what's been programmed into them.
This is a hard one for me because I've gone to conferences and, things where they're like, look in the mirror and say you're beautiful. Well, you know what? Not everybody can do that. But I think there are certain things about each of us that we love. And there's probably things that, we don't like. But as a woman, I think if you can get to that point where, you know what, oh my gosh, my eyes or whatever, that I love, it's easier to look in that mirror. Because that's you just called me out on this today too. Because I looked at the camera, I was like, woof. He was like, what do you, this is for you today.
As my wife always says, she says, boys ultimately look at themselves in the mirror and they're just attracted to what good qualities they have.
Yeah.
And girls are drawn to the one blemish. So some of that is just the makeup of a man, a woman, right? But I think, the truth is that maybe we don't have to settle and we can hack our own, system in the way we're naturally prone to be negative or look for the negative to be positive. But ultimately, one of the things that I talk about to students is, I watch different kids who are adopted. I was adopted. Jim, your husband, is adopted. And both of us have watched different people and how they handle adoption. And if we are the stories that we tell ourselves, when you're adopted, you're telling yourself one story or another. And ultimately, for me, I had to make a decision. What story was I going to tell myself? What did I want to root in my core? Did I want to focus on the fact that my biological father abandoned me and rejected me? Or did I want to focus on the fact that I was chosen, that I was loved, that I was cared for? And I think sometimes I watch so many kids that have this anxiety and so they're conflicted about, like, I'm adopted, so the idea of being an orphan or the idea of being rejected, that's really ouchy and really hurtful for good reasons. I mean, at our core, we need love, right? And so, but here's the deal. I could tell myself the story over and over that I was rejected, that my dad didn't want me, I'll never know him, blah, 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 blah. And if I put that down here, what I could do is I could totally miss the journey with, my biological mom, but also with my adoptive dad. And I could have pushed that away. I could have rejected it. I could have missed out on an incredible life, always feeling less than, based on what story I told myself. And I know a lot of people that struggle with that, and simply because we are the story we tell ourselves. Now, the beautiful thing is both things were true. I'm not saying that we should not live in reality. Well, Coach Seth, you're saying I should just ignore the fact that I was rejected, ignore the fact that somebody abandoned me? Like, that's messed up. Messed up or not messed up, it's true, but that truth doesn't have to be our story.
Go ahead. And I was just going to say, too, that, when you accept that story, like your adoptive father, helped shape you as a man. But it's only you're the man that you are because you created that story and you embraced that story. And
I know there's, parents out there that you have adoptive kids and they struggle with this. And one of the most incredible stories I have about, really talking to your kids about adoption is really from Jim. I think his dad did it so well. His dad took him when his sister was born to the hospital, and they were looking in at, his little sister that was just a little baby in the window, and he was pointing her out, and he said, this is not how you came into the world, Jim. It's like, what do you mean? It's like, well, your sister, your mom got pregnant, and that's who we got. We had no choice. But with you, we had a choice. Like, me and your mom came into a room just like this, and there was babies everywhere. And me and your mom looked around and we said, that's the one right there for us. Jim, that's who we want. So Jim, you were adopted. You were chosen. And see, what happened was the story he told himself was, I was chosen. I'm loved. I'm secure. I'm not average. My parents were stuck with my sister, and he'd make fun of his sister. Like, they're stuck with you. Like, they wanted me. She'd say, why do mom and dad love you so much? Easy. They're stuck with you. They chose me. So, I just can't encourage you enough, if you have kids that have been adopted, get into their core how chosen they are, and it changes the narrative. And ultimately, this relates not just to adoption, but to life. Like, what story, what narrative are you telling yourself? And how about your kids? Like, the reason that their behavior doesn't match what you put into them and what you expect from them, listen, stop feeling so much pressure that you're messing things up or that they're just a mess. They're kids. What you can do is reinforce your love for them, who they are, remind them of who they are, but then also drill down, try to get to the root. Where is this coming from? Where's this anger coming from? And usually you're going to hear things like, I feel like you're attacking me. Well, why do you feel like I'm attacking you? And you're going to hear something like, because you always, and then they'll fill in the blank. Right? But now you're getting to the subconscious level where we can have real breakthroughs. I just had one of these conversations with my son last week where he felt enormous pressure, at least that's what he told me, to play basketball. I said, listen, where does that come from? Where's the pressure come from? Do I make you feel pressure? What do I say? What do I do? He said, well, you don't really say anything or do anything. It's just the way I feel. And I said, well, where does that come from? He said, I don't know. So we drilled down. It led to a dialogue. We went on a journey. And he was on a team where he just felt like he was less than. And he just felt like, you know what? I'm no good. and he didn't want to disappoint me. So it was something that wasn't necessarily either of us did on purpose, but in his subconscious was, you know what? Basketball is not for me. I'm not good. I feel pressure to do this. I don't want the pressure. And that conversation turned things around. I said, so do you like basketball? Because I don't care if you want to be an elephant trainer. Like, I'm going to support whatever you want to do. And he just smiled, and I said, so do you want to play basketball or not? I don't care. He said, no, I like basketball. It's fun. I'm good at it. I said, so what does that mean? Well, it means I actually would like to work out. I just don't want to feel pressure. I said, well, there's none for me. Mm-hmm. The whole thing turned around from being in tears to kind of discovering why he was there. Mm-hmm. It was just one of those cool moments. And they're unscripted, but if you can be aware of what's going on in the subconscious and how important getting to the core is, it's a game changer as a parent.
That's good. And how did you keep your composure? I mean, I know a lot of parents can't always be there. So we have to be conscious of what's down here too before we go and enter into this, right?
My wife really helped me. So the tag team thing helped.
Okay.
Because we're having a conversation in front of the rest of the family. And she just said, you know, Seth, why don't you take it to the room? And sometimes just going to the other room, or sometimes just taking a 2-minute break and then coming back to it, helps me gather myself.
That's good.
Because at first he was accusing me of putting pressure in. At first, my first response is like, well, why is he accusing me? Mm-hmm. You know, like I don't, man, am I doing that?
Right, yeah.
And so it's easy just, if you don't take a breath, just to respond with like, I don't do that. Just to respond, because I know I don't. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to listen. And sometimes that little 2-minute break helps you gather yourself and remember, okay, I've got to get to the core. Mm-hmm. Like, where is this coming from? He's hurt, he's upset, it's there for a reason. And these emotional outbursts, please get in your core. Stop letting them bother you. You need to realize that these emotions are flags. They're beautiful, wonderful, colorful flags that you as a parent have a moment of opportunity with your kids or whoever it's with. You have a moment of opportunity if the other person will be open. And if you can compose yourself and get there, and when you're doing it out of love and truly trying to get to the core, the other person can tell. Just your body language and the way you talk, it opens the door for incredible things to happen that often can be benchmarks in your relationship and in their mind.
That's good. That's so wise.
Good stuff.
Yep.
We're out of time. We're going to wrap this series up with the next session. Stay tuned for that. Be sure to like this, share it, and actually go to 5starlife.org. We're going to be offering more and more of this stuff. You can get more information about some parent programming for your kids we're going to be offering. We're working on a platform. You can get that at 5starlife.org. Thanks so much for tuning in.